Hi, I'm Michelle Hatfield. I work with the District Office of Transitional Services for Los Angeles Unified School District. I've been doing this for about 10 years. One of my specialties is autism, and I'm going to be talking about today that transition through leaving the public schools and going wherever students plan to go and helping them out. And how to write up a transition plan. It's in Los Angeles School District, we included as part of the IEP. It's called the Individual Educational, instead of the Educational Plan, it's the Transition Plan. Transition. When I'm talking to students, I kind of like them to, we play kind of a guessing game. And so one of the things that we talk about is transition and what transition, the words trans, which means, and we start with transformers and talking about what is a transformer so that they understand that trans means to move forward or to change. And I usually talk about transition is changing of a situation. With I'm a service is the other thing that I emphasize with the students. And I'm a service, meaning that I'm not a have to do. I give information, I give recommendations, but it is the student, I try to empower the students, their families in coming up with a plan. I also stress not independence, but interdependence. And the reason for that is that my emphasis, why I went into teaching, why I went into education, is that education is to learn how to work with a community, being an active participant in a community. That means that you're being heard, you're sharing responsibilities, you learn to negotiate, you learn to be a part. And not a dependent member that is being told what to do, but sharing that. There's a back and forth. You are not taking care of somebody else exclusively, and they're not taking care of you exclusively. It is really about that reciprocal relationship that students learn to be taken care of, but also how to take care of others, and that they are an active member of that community. It's really important that they choose that community too, and they define that community. We're here to help them make that definition. It might be the community is defined only within the nuclear family, that maybe they become an active member of that family. Or depending on that, it could be in their discipline, in their disability. It could be the community could be defined as the school community. It could be defined later on as a work situation. Or more important that we forget a huge amount is also recreation. That we're also here, students play as part of it. So if our students are really into playing video games, that's their community. That's what they're playing. And in many cases, they are an active member of that community. And that's what we're heading for, is that definition. The one thing I did leave out on this, as I said, learning to share that you need the independent living skills, the self-advocacy skills, and that again is defining who are your advocates and the student finding those advocates. Sometimes in most cases, it's their families, but not in all cases. In some cases, it's the school. There's a teacher. There's somebody that they relate to. In some cases, it's their friends or that group that they feel comfortable in. Yep. Independent living, these are absolutely things that students need to know how to do. And that is, first of all, is to get around that community, that defined community. Sometimes it just means getting around that classroom and being able to manipulate around that classroom, find things independently, to be able to find things in their living environment, at their home. Where is their place in home? Sometimes it means being able to travel on a bus, learn how to drive. That has to be defined, and that is part of the transition plan, is giving them those skills. I'm really going to emphasize meaningful work. Work is really defines us. And what is meaningful work to us is going to be different, in some cases, to our children or our students or whoever if you're advocating for somebody else or for yourself. You have to define what is meaningful work. They have to define what's meaningful work for them. So for many of our students, maybe they're great at math, but they just do it, and it doesn't mean anything to them. But playing that video game and being really good at that video game, that has meaning for them. And that's learning to respect that and find a way so they're contributing to whatever that community is. Time and money management, again, learning those skills so that you are part of your community, that you are able to not being told where to go and when it's time to go someplace, not trying to having somebody hand you the economic ability to do that. That's why it's very important, even if it's just a small amount of money that they're given for a job that they are doing, that we find it as a community, we are saying to them, this has worth. It has worth on a monetary basis because that's what we value. That is a form of saying to somebody, we appreciate what you did. Mm-hmm. Where's the elephant one? Coming. Oh, okay. Nothing. Knowing, okay. Many times when they come into the IEP, right in the 9th grade, when I first am having contact with my students, the one thing, knowing the disability and its effect. The gentleman before me, who is a hard act to follow, he basically said, which is incredibly, incredibly important, that you empower somebody by letting them explore who they are and how the disability or their challenge, the challenges they have to face, how it affects them and who they are, and finding out who they are. That for respect, showing respect to somebody, is incredibly important. Students really need to do that exploration. There was a woman who was talking about resource and being in the resource room. Many of our students are in resource and they don't even know why they're there. They have no idea what the disability is, and then it becomes it defines them rather than them defining it. How much it encompasses their life it has to be their choice. For some students, I'm saying that they're there for 60 minutes in a day. The rest of the 23 other hours, they're not there. And maybe for that 60 minutes they're with that disability. Maybe the disability is there and impacts them for a lot more. But that's their decision. And that's an exploration. That doesn't happen overnight. That decision is a fluid, is very fluid. Defining who you are, we do it constantly. We redefine ourselves constantly. And at different situations, we are that person. Sometimes being a woman or being a wife or being a mother trumps a whole lot of other stuff. Other times being a teacher trumps that. Sometimes having a disability and being an hour of being in that situation where you're trying to process things, you're trying to figure out something, and your disability gets in the way, that's going to trump it. But it does change. It changes all the time, and students have to be a place to explore that. Shared responsibility. What we're talking about is as parents, as teachers, as someone who is sharing stuff with students, with my students, is giving the access, helping students get access to that, utilize, participate, and contribute in that community. At school, it's the school community, because that we're having as a jumping off place to go and explore after high school what communities you're going to belong to and how do you participate in it. And it has to start at the school. It has to start at the home and then go from there. Just the whole thing. I just put it in because besides being working in transition, I'm also a mother of my son who has Asperger's. He's 22 years of age now. He's just about to graduate Cal State Northridge. And he is now running he is the president of the Anime Club, which at Northridge, probably in a lot of places, that is really, there is a huge amount of students that are part of that club that are self-identified on the autism spectrum. We have tried to talk to him and describe and so that he understands what his disability is. And that's changed over the years too. So he wasn't diagnosed until he was 16 years of age. But starting way back, I don't know if anyone's heard of Dr. Bauman. We were lucky enough, if we're talking about the parable of the elephant, the wise, that feels little parts of it. Well, the three blind men that are feeling parts of the elephant and only seeing one part of what autism is in this case, we're lucky we had about 3 or 4 instead wise women that worked with my son at a very young age. Dr. Bauman was one of them. She is one of the pioneers in autism. And she was extremely reluctant to label him at the time he was being seen by her. But there was a lot of descriptions that were done. So we always shared that with him. Obviously, just like you, we went back and forth on how do you describe it? What do you tell your child? How you don't want to define. You don't want to define. You want to describe things and ask questions and help them do that exploration. But it has taken till this year when his friends have finally have come out and said that they were on the spectrum, and that he finally started asking questions of him, and not, I don't want to hear about this, and taking other definitions for himself. For us, the big breaking point for us was parent groups. And I really suggest if you are a parent that you get in touch with a parent group, because what we, was the going into the school and for parent night and being taken away in the corner and discussed your child separately after all of them. We went through that for years and years and years, and people just always trying to puzzle him out and talk to us separately. And we always felt like there was something different. We as parents become special ed as well. We are put under a microscope. We are looked at everything we do. We naturally questioned ourselves as well as our son being questioned. And it was really important that, that for us that we went to this parent group and we found out every parent in that group had experienced the same thing, that there are norms. There are things that are very normal about, and there are differences, as everybody here has been saying. I'm different, but yes, there are still things that are very similar. And the one thing that I've learned is the only common thing that I've learned about it is the ability to adapt and that fluidity. It's very difficult for my son, for any of my students that I work with, to be able to take a set of rules and put them in a different situation. But that's true for most people I meet. Communications, human communications between people, the hardest thing I can think of, it is the most fluid relationships between human beings has got to be the most difficult ones to read, because every history and background that you are having as part of this conversation, the other person's having too. If it's a good day, then they might be feeling really good and happy, but if it's a bad day for them and it's an okay day for you, but you don't know whether it's them or you that's feeling like you're not making any sense and not connecting. So think about this for students, for people. I always talk about students. I should say people in general that really have that difficulty in being able to transfer one set of rules to another situation. And trying to read somebody, because they're not going to read the same all the time. They keep changing. It is incredibly difficult. And I always, every IEP meeting I went to, I always wanted to constantly give credit to my son for the amount of work and the difficulty and how he kept going at it and kept working so hard to reach out and do that. That we don't give enough credit to our children. That, as the gentleman here probably described far better than I can, what goes into a day and what somebody has to continually go through. These are just some of the descriptions. We've heard them over and over and seen them over and over. But some and all of them, it depends on the individual person. And that also, that definition, we're really here to help them define that. I'm going to be focusing primarily, I have been, and I'm going to continue to focus primarily on high-functioning autism, mostly because this is the hardest group of students that school systems are having. At the high school, we have just started getting the wave, is what I call it. We have a huge amount of students that academically are ready to graduate high school in 4 years, have gotten the grades, but they have an assistant teacher with them still, and they don't know how to, they don't know how to deal with life, all of the other things that I had been talking about earlier. They don't know how to participate in a community. They don't know how to move throughout it. They don't know how to access the curriculum, how to self-advocate for themselves, how to ask for things. And they're graduating from high school. And once you get the diploma, just so I'll give you a quick background, you get a diploma. You can be at high school till you're 22 years of age, or you get that high school diploma. That's it. Once you get that diploma, you cannot come back and say, but I don't know where to go, what to do, where am I going, how am I going to do this? The other thing that's hitting our kids now, and I really want to make this, if most of you are from California, Regional Center has been hit real hard. Department of Rehab has been hit real hard by the budgets. The schools have been hit real hard with the budgets. And the first places they cut are those services. So we as families are further and further out on that limb economically with trying to figure out what to do. There has been, in LA Unified, has started to put in more transition services for students that are from 18 to 22. And just to let you know, legally, if you have an IEP and they say, he's got all or she's got all his credits and she's ready or he's ready to graduate, and you don't feel that they've got that transition, then they can stay till 22, but be sure that IEP goals are for transitional IEP goals. There was also a teacher here before that that was talking about assistance, the one-on-one assistance. I know that it feels safe and it feels really good to have that assistant next to your child, but when they leave the high school, there's no more assistance. Colleges do not give assistance. They do not allow even you to give them an assistant and have them go into the school with them. If they cannot function on their own, then they cannot go to college. That's the reality. So if you get a chance, I start with talking to families about not cold turkeying, not having a student come into 9th grade and say, okay, bye assistant, they're not going to be here anymore. But start to do little at a time, so by the time they're in their senior year, they are or the years right before they are going to leave the school, that they are on their own, that they are doing, they have a right to fail. That's how we learn. Everybody learns. So if the assistant use that assistant to help pull the assistant away, help them learn how to do things on their own. And it is sometimes it's really scary. Also learning how to use that bus system while they're still in school especially if you've got that assistant, have that assistant start teaching them how to ride a bus. So you've got that safety net. Also determining where do you want that, where does your child want to be? What community does he want to participate in? If he wants work, then again, what kind of work skills does he need? Not what kind you think he should have, but what kind does he or she want? What do they feel they can do by themselves and be a part of that community? That can change too. I mean, people can grow, but at least while you are at the high school, that's what a transition plan is. That is exactly what a transition plan is. It's looking at where are you going, where are you now, what kind of skills do you have to learn, and how can we use all the assistance that you have, the teachers, the assistants, the